All right, it is time. It's a school night, so we can't wait forever. We're gonna get this train rolling. Well, thanks so much for stopping by, and hope you guys are having a good time. Just saw the Scotch for a Dummy show, good as usual, and had a really good time with doing the blind tasting with Leanne Scotch in the Bayou last week. That was really cool and educational. Check out the video if you haven't already. Hey, Tamar, good to see you. I'm glad you were able to make it. Not sure if Mom's going to be able to or not. I haven't talked to her in a little while. I'll have to catch up with her if she doesn't make it tonight and say hey. Things going pretty good though, and we're going to change the format a little bit. Hey, Juan, good to see you. Maybe you can see them in the channel there. Hey, Ben, good to see you too. The format change, I figured we'll change it up a little bit. I've been doing a lot of distillery tastings, and I tried to stick to the core, and I did some independents here and there. And after going through the journey, I thought it's time to break off and maybe not do like a review that's specific anymore, but maybe just go over the notes, what I get, and just give them subjectively, and a note that I might present. You might be like, well, that's a great sounding one, or that doesn't sound intriguing to me, and it's because it's all subjective anyway. So I figured this would be the best format of just going through different distilleries. My goal is to hit a bottle of every distillery from what the SMWS has to offer. Scotch Malt Whisky Society, for folks that aren't familiar with them, and going to take a journey. And they have several hundred to pick from, and they actually go out of the single malt Scotch area. They actually do a lot of bourbons and gins, and I think they even use. I know they do like some Indian whiskeys and some Japanese, and I'm trying to think of. They might even do like vodka or something. I can't remember some of the other other offerings, but pretty sure it was across the board. And for the quality I've had, and I'm a big risk versus reward kind of guy, for the money I'm putting into it, for the best bang for the buck, if I get two solid bottles that are above 10 years, that are not colored, that are not chill filtered, that are cask strength, and I can get them both shipped without any issues, and being in great shape for around 300, I think it's actually a pretty good deal for what you're getting. And that's like that is one of the lower end things. But if you are more of a connoisseur that has a little more cash to throw out there, you can spend $400 or $500 on a bottle easy with these guys, and even more for more the 20 to 30-year-old stuff. So I can't go there, but I'm happy to try these, because these are our top quality, pretty much. And hey, Daniel, sorry to be ignorant, but is this the after show for Scotch for Dummies? Either way, I like what Telex is reviewing. I appreciate it, Daniel. The after show that they were talking about on their channel is they have a Discord channel they use for voice, where a lot of people will get into one channel and try to talk to each other. And it's good to hang out and share interests and talk about whiskey and whatnot. Um, I'm not sure why they're having it right now when I'm doing a show, but that's up to them, and I wish them the best of luck with doing that. Um, I try to be wary when people are doing shows, and not try to start one if someone's already doing one, especially if I know them, like if it's Rob or Aquavite. Um, but it's hard. There's so many people doing shows now that it's really hard to evaluate when everybody else is doing one. So I can't, let's say I blame them for doing it. So it's kind of It is what it is, but officially no. But this is the after show, pretty much, that we've always had for the last year or so. So thank you for hanging out. Either way, Troop says cast strength and age statement is a good thing. Yeah, I mean, not just the cast strength and the age statement, but you also get that it's definitely not colored and it's definitely not chill filtered. And that, if you're an Aquavite fan like me, those are the four things that you're looking for anyway. And most distilleries, they don't give you that, unfortunately. And these guys can. I mean, McAllen can do it. I know Dalmore's got the money. They could give you something more natural, but they're going for a different market. Our market is more purist. We're a little more picky. A lot of people that watch my show, I think, are a little more experienced. They get more into the intricacies of of whiskey, and that's what I'm trying to dive into here. And that's why I'm focused really on getting away from the 2 and 3 star rated distilleries, because that's where I've kind of gone. I've hit a lot of the really good ones, like the Glendronics and the Old Pultneys and the Holland Parks and the Bunnahavens, and even more obscure ones. I've done the Kraganmores and the Gregelickies and the Kinninavies and Glen Spey, Glen Ords, that type of stuff. So once you start getting to the Glen Keiths and Glen Ords, when you're collecting, it's like, wow, do I want to spend $100 for a mediocre 2 or 3 star bottle, or do I want to spend maybe $1 to $150 and get something like this? Now, this is, I think, is where it's at. I will get into the notes in a second. This was my first purchase after joining. I tried a lot of a friend, KB, Scotch for Dummies. We got together, went up there, had a great time, and did a good number, 12 or 13 different offerings of this. I think we did it justice. We took our time. We weren't like trying to plow through it. I remember enjoying every single one I touched, even the surprising 3-year Eden Mill. There was a Linkwood that was around, I think, 12 to 13 years, maybe even younger, 7 years. That was really intriguing. All were tasty. And I thought, well, let's just start. I tried to go with number 1 because I'm a big on sequential and I'm a collector. I like to try to get everything I possibly can get my hands on. So 1 was not available yet. I talked to Brianna, was great in the beginning. Ben was great today or yesterday. I talked to him about ordering a couple more different bottles. And the one, which is Glenfarclas, will be available, I think, in a few weeks or so. But this one, at the time, and I got a Glen Scotia coming and a Dalmore coming soon. That'll be next on the list. I decided to start with 2 since 1 wasn't available, and not by choice. It's just kind of luck of the draw when it comes to numbers being distilleries. It's a Glenlivet, which surprising. It's one of the first scotches that I got into that I liked. I started in Islay and loved it, but also branched out to Glenmorangie. Not big on the core juice. I like the other stuff like Lassance is great, Contrabon. And then when I get to the Glenlivet, the 12 was I thought was outstanding as a basic, a pour and a dram. Fell in love with it. But one of the things that I thought was interesting about this one was it's so different than, this is an 11-year-old Glenlivet. It's going to be a 60.7, a lot higher ABV. Refill barrel, ex-bourbon cask, distilled in 2006. And the profile's a bit different on this, even though it's really close to, what you would think you would get out of a cask strength 12. That's not quite what it is. Ben's asking, have you tried any single cask nation bottlings? Always cask strength age statement and coloring, not able to close all the distilleries. Huh. No, I haven't tried a single cask nation. I think that Tom R might have been talking about them earlier tonight, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember if Tom, if you're still around, if you were talking about those guys. I haven't tried one. It sounds intriguing. I think Tom liked it. If that's the same type of independent bottling that I think he was referring to earlier. Hey, Gawkin, good to see you. Oh man, the funny thing about this now, the Glenlivet 12, if you ever have tried it, and if you haven't, I definitely recommend that you give it a try. Um, it's a great space side, and that one to me has a lot of tropical aspects to it. The most prominent note, which I really love about the Glenlivet 12, is the pineapple. I really love the pineapple flavor. I don't know what it is, but I just adore it. So I think that's why I kind of favor that one than a lot of other ones. I also like Glenfiddich 12 too. Um, anyway, but with this is not that, but it's more complex and gives you more notes. It might not give you the same exact ones that you were thinking you were going to get, but it definitely still delivers, greatness. Now 60.7 is not something that I would typically dive all into neat, but when doing even cast strength whiskey, I think you should at least give the first sip just a neat sip. Don't add anything to it. Just take it the way it is and enjoy it. But for a nose first, also neat as well. Oh man, it's even though you don't get the pineapple, you do get a little bit of a mango flavor, and you get like a toasted coconut and a big dose of honey. And it reminds me a lot of a Kleinlich kind of a 14 kind of a nose. I know the ABV is really helping out with this, and this is why I wish that I know the master distiller is always trying to get that perfect blend for you, just to give it to you out of the bottle. You'd be happy with your 40 or 43%, and that's it. But for me, that's not where it's at. I'm more, let me do the water touches and get it exactly right. Let me perfect it the way I want it, and I think that's the better way for everybody. Because, yeah, for this particular one, I might love it just neat, or maybe at 50 instead of 60.7, I might like it perfect for me at 58%. That might not be my sweet spot. Gawkin, he might decide that he likes his at right underneath that 56.5%. Lee, Mr. Lee, if you're watching out there, we like to call him Aquaman because he loves to put water on whiskey. I'm being sarcastic. He might like his at 46.5%, but that's the way he likes it, and that's the right answer for him. You can't argue with that. That's what's great about, I think, this version of whiskey, is that you're getting it and you can make it what you want it to be. Some pencil shavings, which I like, actually. It's got a kind of, the woody notes are coming out. It is young, so you're not going to get, unfortunately, maybe some deep, darker things that you might be looking for. Since it is a refill barrel ex-bourbon type of a cask, you're not going to get a lot of sherry stuff going on. But I'll tell you what, this does bring the fruit. Even though it's not sherry per se, it's got Space Eye written all over its face. I mean, there's marshmallow in there. It's like a cast strength Japanese whiskey in a lot of ways, with more emphasis on that wood, though. It's got a lot more of a woody factor to it. Huh. And the weird thing is, it's going to sound strange. This also, on the nose, even brings a little bit, and it's a smidgen, but it's enough to notice, a Springbank-esque Dunnage Warehouse nose to it. What you guys drinking? And this is the other change of the format. As I thought, I'd come out and talk about something that I'm getting into, and starting a collection of. Feel free to let me know and let others know what you're into, what it is that you are collecting, or what it is you're drinking. and what you like and don't like about it. And there's no right or wrong answer about, about it. I wanted this to be more of an interactive type of experience than just a live show review. I was hoping that also I would maybe find someone either that's in the channel now, or even someone that in the future maybe plan a live show together, just to talk whiskey. Doesn't have to be about any this bottle or any SMWS bottle. It could be, but if it's not, it could be about any distillery that you like, pros and cons, things you like, dislike. Um, Maybe something that's been in the back of your mind that you want to give some props to recently. A good example, and I'll get to the tasting notes here in a little bit. Just enjoying a good Scotch is what this channel is supposed to be about. But when I was doing the Scotch for Dummies Secret Santa Patreon tasting thing, I thought, well, I want to get somebody, whoever I get, I want to get them something they're going to remember, they're going to appreciate, maybe get them to learn about, something. So I threw in a Bladnoch Adela 15. Bladnoch is not a known distillery by any means. I did not know about them at all until I tried this bottle. They do have 3 or 4 in their core that are available. This 15 is a sherried bottle, and it's not maybe as easily found, but it's not cheap either. But it's still, you can get it for I think under $100, and it's a 15-year-old. It's really well done sherry. It's Oloroso. Surprisingly, there's no PX in it, but it tastes like there is, because whatever they're using, whatever spices they're blending with it, it's the perfect marriage of the savory and sweetness with the fruit, I guess. It makes a really nice balance. I do love the Glenlivet 18 too, which is also a sherry. It's PX though, bourbon mix. Very comparable sherry dram, but the Adela has a little more savory goodness, roundness to it. It's just edges it out, even though it's 3 years younger and a lowland. I mean, and Bladnochs are a lowland, which is really blows my mind. That they would come up with something so great in sherry and being a lowland, which is lowlands are typically like triple distilled, like almost like an Irish whiskey would be, but this tastes nothing like that. It's more like a, not as high, not like a cast strength, Abelard or Abena, but it's close to it. It's like a 40, I think it's 46 or 48. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's higher than 43. I remember, I'm pretty sure, and it definitely doesn't hold any notes of complexity back for what it is. A layered 7.5-year apple brandy. Wow, that sounds good. I'm an apple lover, and this is rich. That sounds good, Gawkin. I love apples too. Anytime, one of the best, that you mentioned it, Gawkin, one of the best apple noted whiskeys I've ever had. If you ever get a chance, it is a little pricey. It's $160. But if you can find it for around 160-ish to 180 at the max, but 160 would be a preferable price. The Glenfiddich Age of Discovery Bourbon Wood Expression, I thought was one of the best apple type tasting whiskeys I've ever had in my life. It was damn good. I know some of the people don't share my enthusiasm maybe for it, but I tell you what, I thought it was an apple Danish all day long. It was great. Ben's having a Kleinleach 11 independent bottle from Gordon McPhail. That sounds damn good too. Ben, does that have a heavy mouth coat like a usual Kleinleach does? The 14 distillery example is the one I know. I have yet to have the Game of Thrones new offering. It's on my to-do get list if I can ever find it. I only need 2 more bottles left to complete my collection. I need a Kleinleach and I need a Royal Notgar, and they will be drank. They will not sit up here on my shelf undrunk. I don't even know what to say on that one, but you know what I'm trying to say. Not drank. I guess that's the way to say it. Gawkins says it is good. I'll look for that Glenfiddich. Yeah, Age of Discovery 19. I know a place in Maryland that has it, and I'm afraid to say it because I kind of want to pick it up for myself because I had it as a sample. I didn't had not have my own bottle of it, but ooh, Ben says pretty much. Oh, super viscous, nice. Pretty much the 14 with more apple and pear notes coated in honey. Wow, that sounds even. So, do you like it better than the standard 14 distillery version? Ben, what is the ABV on that bottle? I'm curious. This would be a good channel, I think, to talk about independent bottling findings that you might find that, you know, people won't. It's a big gamble. Like when I waltz up, even if I love Bunnahabhain, am I gonna like the classic cask Bunnahabhain 18? I might not, because I've had some classic casks that I've not really been a big fan of. If I find a Gordon MacPhail's, specifically a connoisseur's choice Straths, can't even say it, Strathilsa. You know the one I'm trying to say. No, that was not enjoyable at all. It was horrible. But you know, this is definitely the place to be to find the ones to definitely look for and get into, and know the ones, especially new distilleries, that you should stay away from until they get a better um, offering. And a good example of that is the Abendurg. Uh, Avendurg is a new distillery. I haven't had they have a 10-year, I think they just released, or something that's actually got an age statement of some sort on it. I think it might be a 10. Their inaugural release was absolutely so bad that I couldn't drink it. It was that bad. And I've been able to drink some grain whiskey that I cannot stand. This stuff, and supposedly is a single malt whiskey that's not a grain. I could not drink it. It was that rough. I still will give them a chance. I still will try their 10. I hope to God I like it better. But that first 3-year-old that inaugural they released, oh my God, it was undrinkable. And I'm not a Gravon fan, a green fan. And I've given them heck over the ones that I've had over some time, but this was even like 10 times worse than any Gravon or Invergordon or Northern British or any of those guys I've ever had. Just not my thing. And there were others. I was not alone in my scathing reviews of that bottle. But we'll get to that stuff later down the road when we're actually doing them. But that's the goal. And this might not be the only dram I have. I might have something else before we go farther. But we better start sipping before the time gets away from us. This holds up really well for oxygen. I'm well past the neck pour and still kicking. Never had a bad bottle, and never had a bad Glenlivet. The only Glenlivet bottle I've ever had. Let me know if you guys have ever had a Glenlivet that you were kind of not not as impressed by. Maybe is the term to use. But the only Glenlivet that I was kind of not quite sure about. It's not that I didn't like it. I was just not quite sure if I would ever want to buy it again. Is the code, and the Glenlivet code was the cipher. I think might have been the first one or alpha. There's a couple hidden type of offerings that they did. The code I remember was the one I picked up, and it wasn't bad. It was actually reminiscent of a Longmorn. It had a very, very savory note to it. Very spicy. And if you weren't ready for that spicy savoriness and you were looking for more of a sweetness, man, you were in for a long night because it did not have it. And it had some pithy marmalade stuff going on and some bitterness. But with the right amount of water, it actually soared and it actually became pretty good, actually. But you had to get that amount just right to get rid of that pithy bitterness and to bring out the more sweet notes to it. But it was not an easy bottle to go through. That was the only Glenlivet, though. I mean, I've had the 15th French Oak. I liked it. The 18. Haven't had the 20 stuff yet. That's out of my reach. Uh, when I at the point where I was trying these, this was early on in the game. But I think pretty much every other bottle I've actually been into. Gawkins says Laird's also claims to have provided the Continental Army with apple brandy to have been granted the first license still in the USA. Wow. Laird's apple brandy. I've got to look that up. I'm surprised. I didn't even know they had years on apple brandy. But I've never been a brandy drinker. I've only had brandy on the side. I think in a pure form. I probably had a brandy Alexander or something early on in drinking times, not even knowing what I was drinking. But with the proper brandy introduction, I think I had about 6 to 8 months ago. And did I like it? I don't know. It was kind of but it wasn't apple. And I think if it was more of an apple type, I might have been more into it. So I got to look that up and see, get more notes. Going to neat on the taste. Wow. 60%, 61 practically. Doesn't hold back. And man, do you get decked in the face with a great big pile of oranges, mangoes, and lemons. Just the right blend of fruits together, and pow. Oh, really a nice mouth coat, and I'm sure that the ABV is helping out with that too. I'm not sure if that's the only thing. I'm sure there's other elements because the Kleinlich 14 is not that high of ABV that I remember, but it has a really nice, big, viscous mouth coat to it. This is, I'd say, not as heavy as that. It's probably on the medium end, but it's definitely not a thin whiskey by any means. I'd love to see the SMWS do a Glengoyne and see if it's as thin as their usual stuff, or if it's, since it's higher ABV, if it's more like I don't know. Even some of the high ABV stuff is great, but it's such a thin mouth coat. That's my only beef I've ever had with a Glengoyne. Is it's always on the thinner side. But I'm not gonna bitch because it's a good taste. So, a good one that's kind of like Glengoyne, I think that has a better mouth coat is Glenfarclas, and it also has a little bit of that touch of sulfuric edge that might give it a little funkiness that you might be looking for in a dram too. You can't go wrong with either distillery, I think. Easier to drink on the second, even neat sip. A ton of honey still, and with those fruits, you get a bit of white pepper, coconut flavor still there, roasted. It's got this little bit of leather, a little bit of that spring bank dunnageness is in there. Got to have a couple drops though to give it a little bit of justice here. See how it goes. Oh man, don't let Lee see if he's watching. We're gonna put more than a couple of drops though, because this is being 60. I'm not gonna do like too crazy though. I think maybe that much might be a good place to begin. A few drops, nothing major. I love this because I can really fine tune how much water I'm putting in something. With spoons even, it's not easy because if you start getting spoons out, you might as well just start slashing the stuff with water. And it's just overwhelming. Even I like eye drops, to be honest with you. I do love this, but also I'd love to have an eyedropper on the side. I'm gonna get myself for some whiskeys because I love with a Glengoyne cast strength, for example, or a teapot dram. It's one of those that's so delicate because it's already so thin. You don't really want to add anything to it, but you might have to get a little more flavor. So get you one of those eyedroppers and literally put an eyedrop or two. And see how that goes with those kinds of drams. Still getting my pencil shavings and leather. Sorry, I had to clear my nose a little bit there. You get this, the pencil shavings are still there, and some florals are coming in now. I think the water brings a little bit of the florals, but it's such a there's still a dankness there, so the florals aren't too much for me because some of the time when I do water, and if I do start getting floral, sometimes it's almost too much, like a lilac lavender kind of thing, and I'm just kind of like, Glenlivet kind of does that to me. But on this one, it brings out some tea, like some. It's not a dark tea or a gray tea or anything like that. Just a nice, real light tea. Those florals are really popping. Mm. Man, that's tasty. You could even I could even add maybe a little bit more water and still be okay. But it's definitely, I probably had about I probably have it about 58, 57% right now. And that's a pretty good that's pretty good. But we'll take just a little bit more and see if it can handle it. I think it can. It's a little bit more. Not too much though. Let's see what we get. That's part of the fun. Gawkin likes to use a dropper as well, so you know how it is, Gawkin. Sometimes you can get away with using a spoon or even just tilting your glass and giving a little dose of something. If you've already played with it, you're really fine tuned. But until you fine tuned it to be right where sometimes you do have to, especially the real delicate drams, especially the really older ones. Like I'd hate to mess up a 30-year-old whiskey. I don't care what year it is, what ABV it is. But if it's a 30-year-old and you're playing with anything over like 50%, you got to be careful not to destroy it. Because once that whiskey's destroyed, man, you can't fix it. You can always add more water. You cannot always take any out of it unless you got some master kick-ass filter that you've got that I don't know about. I had a question that brings up a memory. I had a question I was going to ask somebody. Oh yeah. Any scientists out there, let me know. Andrew, if you're watching from Scotch for Dummies, you might know the answer to this. The answer is probably no, but I figure what the hell, I might as well ask it, right? Damn, this is good. When I start out with, let's say this is 60, this is definitely 60.7. Flat on the bottle. 60.7 is my starting point. I pour it in my Glencairn or whatever device I want to pour it into. Is there any device, tape, mechanism for me to figure out what proof or ABV I have after I've added water to this glass alone? I know there's shake techniques to like moonshine, and people, excuse me, people can like look at the bubble dissipation when they pop and tell you what a proof is. There's an art to that, and there is a science to it too. But with a glass, I can't. I mean, I could shake it like with my hand on it, but that would be a mess. It would be disrespectful to the whiskey itself. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to find out what I have brought the glass to for my own personal purposes. If I can tell what I brought it down to, and if that's the great taste for me, then in the future it'll be easier for me to get it to that level if I know how to measure it. But I don't know if there's a way to do that. If anyone could ever invent that, if it's not available, they'd probably be a billionaire. Because I would love to be able to tell. Starting out 60.7, I just added two dashes, two little dashes of maybe 3 or 4 drops a piece. What percentage am I at now? That would be awesome to know. Really great taste. I'm still gonna enjoy the rest of this. So Moral of the story is, even if I didn't get the notes thinking Glenlivet 12, thinking, okay, I'm going for a 11-year-old cast strength Glenlivet, what am I going to get? Even though I didn't get the pineapple maybe that I was shooting for, I got every other note that I was looking for. The toasted coconut alone was a really nice touch. The fruits, the other fruits, like the oranges and the lemons and the mangoes and there's something else. It's not sherry, so I don't think it gets to like a strawberry level maybe or raspberry, but there's other grapes and pears in there too. It's a plethora of great fruit. Even though there's no smoke or peat to speak of, as it's not a peated offering, it doesn't need it per se. It's got enough flavor. For me being a flavor guy, it has more than enough flavor to be a great taste. And I wish that steakhouses and around my area and places you could get a dram like this instead of the typical, nothing against the Macallan 12 or the Lafroig 10 or even the Talisker 18. Sometimes you get lucky and you get bottles like that. But I would love to be able to go into a restaurant, steakhouse, or even just any restaurant type. Doesn't have to be a steakhouse. Could be like a seafood bar, and get a dram like this. But that's unheard of, and it's just a shame that the shipping and all that is such a nightmare to deal with. I'm just glad that there's ways to make it work and that we do have a chance to at least enjoy it, even if we have to, do a lot of work to do it. Westwell, good to see you. He's speaking in code. C1V1 equals C2V2. Let me see if I can crack this code. Oh, man. C1V1. That's like version 1 and version 2. Charlie 1, Victor 1, Charlie 2, Victor 2. Tell me what the code is, Westwell, and if I'm on to something, let me know. I think it's a version thing, but C1, and I'm not quite sure what the C is. You have to let me know what that is. Anyway. But I'm very happy with this. At first, I was kind of so thrown off by the notes that I wasn't quite sure if I was going to get into the bottle as I actually have now. And I'm really glad that I let it warm up. Let it get some oxidation too, especially these cast strength whiskeys. They are all about a journey. That's what's so great versus a 40 or 43%. The 40 or 43% is going to get you a great, maybe if you like the distillery, a great taste of whiskey for 6 months to a year, and that's about it. If you've got something like this, and even if you don't drink it fast, you really got, I think, good time to get through it and let the journey, get more complex with the oxidation. I think it does help. I did get one of those pressurization. What is it called? Those sprays that you spray in the bottle, the private preserve type thing. Got it from Amazon. It wasn't expensive. Very light. It's not a heavy gas. I think they put hydrogen and nitrogen or something in there. Haven't had to try it really yet, but I'm just starting to get a lot of open bottles, so it's kind of one of those things I have to be kind of wary of. What you guys drinking? Let me know in the comments. I appreciate it. But definitely worth an eye opening. If you, it's called the Whiskey Extravaganza here in DC. I'm not sure what every city has one, but look out for a Scotch Malt Whisky Society tasting. And they usually come in two, I think 3 or 4. Then I went to had 3 different bottles, and I tell you what, even from their 3-year, 5, 7, 11, up to the 20s, the 30s, of course, They're all pretty damn good, I have to say. I've never been disappointed, um, even with some of the weird off-the-wall distilleries. So check it out. Now for a bonus, I'm thinking that I might have to open up something special. I'm thinking we might have to do a Daftmill. I've got a new Daftmill, new distillery. Bonus to all the guys that stuck around. If there's anybody still out there, comment. The chat's been a little dead tonight. I'm not sure quite why, if the Dummies After Show had anything to do with that or what, but I'll have to look into that. But maybe do a Daftmill. Talked about that in the last show or two of what to maybe pull out. I have samples that we still do in a group that I trade salsa with. So, I think hey Mose, good to see you. Hey Mose, you're usually one of my regulars. Let's have you help me test something. I'll be right back. Let me get a few bottles here. Sorry about the delay. Let's see. We have several different one-offs here that we could do as a bonus. And since Mose has always been a good subscriber, he's always pretty much been the most shows, I'm going to let him pick. It's Mose's pick, guys. All right. So, Mose, you have the choice between 5 offerings. One of the 5, I'm kind of like not sure if I even want to offer it to you because it's not a Scotch. I usually don't go outside of Scotch, but I might do it just for you. All right. So one we have is a Canvas, a 25-year-old whiskey broker, independent bottling, 56.9, natural color and non-chill filtered, filled in 91, bottled in 17, sherry butt number 629er, and bottle 88 at 555. Very specific, 25-year-old grain. I think it's new whiskey that's grain or old that came back. I can't remember. It might be old that came back distillery. Not well known, I don't think. Maybe worth a look. 25-year-old whiskey. I mean, hell, you can't say no usually to that. The Invergordons and Gravans, unless they're like higher ages for grains, I usually don't get into them very much unless they're like, I hate to say it, but 20 to 30-year-old whiskey. So this could be decent. This could be good. I did not cheat and look at Lee's notes. And this one actually came from Generous Paul. Thank you, Generous Paul, if you're watching. He sent me 3 really good choices to pick from. A Port Dundas, this is a new one too, I believe, or a dead one that came back, or maybe even a dead one. I can't remember which of the 3, but 28-year Clondalkin independent bottling, 50% ABV, natural color, non-chill filtered, distilled in 88, bottled in 17. Cast number Delta Mike Golf 11753, refill hogshead, 1 of 249 bottles. Ooh, 1 of 249 bottles. I wonder if that means it's number 1. Wow, if this is 88 of 555 and he knows this is 1 of 249, man, that's pretty cool. That's crazy. That'd be kind of a cool deal. Got a Daftmill, 2006 winter release, 2018. 46% ABV, most likely natural colored and non-chill filtered. This is brand new distillery. I would like to maybe do this one, so we'll have to see that. Yes, the Canvas is a single grain Scotch there, Most. It's, I think, I'll look it up for you. I think it's either a dead or just a distillery that came back. Got a Highland Park Zvin from my friend Mr. Lee, Warrior Series. This is a travel retail exclusive. 40% ABV on the lower end, but Highland Park could be interesting. I have had some Highland Parks like this in this series that were good, even though they were low ABV, but, 3.5 star stuff usually. But nothing to sneeze at, and nothing I would say no to if someone offered me a dram of it. I definitely would try. And the non-Scotch, last but not least, is the Midsummer's Night's Dram, Act 6, Scene 4 for my friend Scott. And he is really good about finding the off-the-wall stuff. Last thing I reviewed was a Red Spot 12 that was actually really good. I remember enjoying that. If I haven't already drank it, I'll have to go and look and see if it is back there somewhere. But that was at the end of the show, so that might have been one of those like, oh, this tastes really good, let's keep drinking it kind of moments. So definitely try to do them. If I do a review of some sort, try to do it justice. So what do you think, Mos? What sounds good out of that if you can pick one of the five? Daftmill, Highland Park's Vin, Canvas 25, Port Dundas 28, and the Midsummer's Night's Dram 6/4. What do you think there, Mos? Give me something, man. Just pick one if you don't care. I just don't want to make any decisions right now for some reason. I had to make decisions all day at work. Hey, Dram, good to see you, man. If you don't pick soon, I'm gonna let Dram decide. If you missed the first part, Dram, you're gonna have to watch again. It's been a new show, a new beginning, and kind of just going through the motions. Well, Mos hasn't said. Oh, I would be really interested in Daftmill. It's a real green to glass Scotch. Oh, Daftmill grain to glass. Is it a grain? I thought it was a single malt. Now you got me intrigued. So let's do a little search here. I might have misread what you said by that grain to glass Scotch, but I know that we're using kind of grain for a little bit everything. But just watch my Warriors lose. Sorry, Dram. That's got to be a rough one, man. I don't watch a lot of NBA type ball, but if my Kentucky, Wildcats lose, or even my Louisville Cardinals lose, I'm a sad panda. Anyway, South Park fans will get that one. All right, let's go to distiller.com and take a look at what we have for the Daftmill. Thankfully, this has been reviewed. I'm not going to look at the notes because I don't want any misdirection going on or any influence. Whiskey Pilgrim's having coffee. All right. Not green, but it's a farm-oriented Scotch. Okay, cool. All right. This is specifically, I really appreciate you picking Mos, and I think you picked the best one out of all of them, the most that has the most intrigue, the most pull, the interest. The Daftmill 2006 winter release of 2018, 46 ABV, most likely not chill filtered or and should be natural colored. We're not certain, but that's what we suspect. And I'm going by my friend Generous Paul. Again, I really thank you for the opportunity to taste this because this is not easy to find stuff. This is tough to find sometimes. I will tell you if it's worth the wait, and I think it's going to be good. It's hard to I can't miss the average rating is a 4.42 out of 5. That's really high out of 3 tastes. 46% ABV sounds great. Ex-bourbon cask, even though it doesn't have a extra cask, I'm still, thinking it's going to be good. So let's get the sucker poured so we can let it breathe at least a little bit before we go into the motions here. And I'll do a little cleanse of the palate. You guys should probably do one too if you haven't recently. I'm going to get a fresh glass. We're going to use a new Dragon glass. I really like these. Decanting and something a little different. Sits on the side, easy to deal with, and we'll just have a little pour here. I got about a third of the pour there, so plenty left to do other reviews or observations and whatnot. Ex-bourbon alone. Well, this should be interesting. 12 years, though. I mean, it's a 12-year. Even I mean, they're not releasing it as a statement, but it's too bad it's not like a Daftmill 12 easily accessible. But since it is doing well, I'm thinking that this is going to be, pretty good. 6 in the morning here in Sweden. Tack for sist, whiskey pilgrim. I didn't know you were. Well, I think the Norwegians probably say that tack for sist. Probably not a Swedish thing, but I do know the differences. Like there's Valdigbra for very good. Veldigbra, I think is how you do it, and it's like VELDIGBRA for the Norwegian, but VALDIGT or something like that, BRA for the Swedish. It's slightly different, but enough to make you think, man, I gotta figure the differences out. Hey, Whiskey Pilgrim, are you a Kent fan? You know the band Kent? I love their music. One of my favorite albums of all time is Duo Dig Haden, I think's how you say it. What is that album called? Now you're gonna make me look it up. I'm butchering the pronunciation. I'm sure. I know it's like "You and I Death" is the name of the album. It's really really good. Oh, Kent, not really. Never mind. All right. Well, you know what I'm talking about. Uh, their music is actually pretty good. I'm a Radiohead fan, and it kind of reminds me of old school '90s like Radiohead stuff. So that was my music in college and growing up kind of thing. So that's why I really got into it. But that's okay. What kind of music do you like there, Whiskey Pilgrim? Just out of curiosity, because that's like the only Swedish music I know outside of ABBA, which I'm sure is probably not something you probably listen to on a regular basis nowadays, at least, unless you're of a particular age, maybe. But I don't want to link the country to just those two groups. So, what are you into? I know there's a lot of good Swedish like death black metal stuff, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, let's go back to the Daftmill 2006 winter release and see what we get. Oh, metal, cool. Okay, Opeth stuff like that. You like Opeth? I think it's a Swedish band, isn't it? Is Opeth technically Swedish? I can't remember. I think the guy from there has got ties at least to Sweden, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. Shoot. Anyway, all right. Let's see. Lowlands. Daftmill is the Lowlands. So this, don't let the Lowlands deceive you. Bladnock, like I talked about earlier, the Della 15 is awesome sherry. Akantoshan, they've got their moments. I like their stuff. I don't think it's bad or too sweet. I like a sweet dram. Oh, okay, Opeth. Yeah, that's my kind of stuff too. Porcupine Tree. They're not Swedish or English, but that's some of my favorite stuff. Progressive metal kind of stuff. But I like the classics like thrash. I like Megadeth, Metallica stuff too. So I can go all day long about music, man. I love it all. Oh wow. What's great about these dragon glasses I like, they really, even though they're odd and they sit kind of different, they really have a nice nose to them because you've got a really big, capacity to hold a nice, amount, but you have a really directed, scent too. Behind the Blackest Eye is great, yeah. Okay. You're down with it then. It's got a strange nose. Nothing like I've ever nosed before. But not in a bad way. It's not a bad nose. It's just different. There is a little dankness, but it's different. It's not a straightforward or aged dankness. This has kind of got like God, I'm gonna make it sound horrible, but it's got like an attic mildew kind of a smell, but not a bad, not necessarily bad. It's got this definite what is that? It's like it's not sweet like root beer or sassafras or molasses, but it's rooty. It's very savory, a very earthy smell. It's intriguing, but I'm not sure if I really like 100% enjoy it or not. That is wild. It's a fresh glass, so I know there's nothing in the glass. This is going to be one of those really different herbal slash. I might hopefully I get some fruit on the palate because I don't get any on the nose. If there's any fruit in there, man, it's funky. It's like some weird sauerkraut mixed with like I don't know what. There's something a little funky about it. It's not like a sulfuric Benevis funky. It's a different kind of a. It's got a little slightly sourness to it. It's sour and savory, if that makes any sense. So Daftmill was still like Akantoshan, or more like Springbank with 2.5. This one. Let me see if I can get some notes for you, most that are more specific. This is part of a working farm and is located entirely within a converted barn. The maximum annual output is an incredibly small 20,000 liters, and they claim to only fill roughly 100 casks per year. They only distill twice per year in the winter and summer when the farm production is down. The 2006 winter batch is their second release and consists of only six first fill bourbon casks, specifically 080 of 2006, 081, 082, 083, 084, and 085 of 2006, which yielded 1,625 bottles and was bottled on December 16th, 2018. Bottled at 46% non-chill filtered and natural color of pale straw, which he is correct with the pale straw deal. Then he goes into the notes. Let me see if I could tell about the distillation process. 1 second. Hopefully someone has found if I'm not finding it, Mose, but my if you go by the typical lowland deal, it's going to be a true triple distillation. That's typically the model of a lowland distillery, but I cannot tell you if they specifically do that there or not. By the notes that I'm seeing, no one's commented on specifics. If you do know about Daftmill, please feel free to comment in the chat or in the after comments after the show about what you know about the distillery, because it is intriguing. This gets really high ratings. Now, the nose to me, it's not my cup of tea, but it's got some very complex notes in there. I mean, there's sauerkraut, there's sourdough bread, there's like a chalkiness. It's very, very, very bready. It's like a more bready slash savory sour than anything else, which it's such a weird different smell to me that I'm kind of hard. It's hard to find the fruits and some of the other like toffee vanilla nuances that. And that's really hard when you find a nose that has a lot of either, if it's not sulfuric, like this one's, I don't think it's sulfuric. I think it's something else that's doing it. It might be the barley or something that they're using. It might be some sort of weird specific, give it some sort of flunkiness to it. But hopefully the palate's better than the nose. I'm not a huge fan of the nose per se myself. But, you know, maybe it's because I poured it, or pretty quickly. Let's let that settle a little bit. I'm not going to touch it with anything, excuse me, just yet. I want to let that simmer because I don't want to overdo be I don't want to be too, quick to judge what's going on here, because typically when you get something and you knows it and it's not giving you any justice, you definitely want to say, okay, give it time. Don't go to the water just yet. Give it time. Time is number one. Then think about, the water or other factors that might help your experience, glass, things like that. But you know, I'm definitely getting the nose. It's just very sour slash bready. Nothing really floral about it. Maybe some herbal things in there too. And I'm trying to. I mean, there's some pepper, like red pepper, in there. It's so sour, funky that I'm having a tough time. Let's give it a little swirl and let it, surface area build up here and see if we can get a. Might give it a little cover over. I would use a Glencairn hat, a token, challenge coin, but they're too small for these glasses. These are a little bigger. They need to make a big fat octagon type of coin. Maybe I'll make one, and to use for these kind of weird glasses. This big fat coins. I should do is do like triple size coins. That way you can still use them on small Glencairns, but you could also use them on big glasses like this. I don't know. The tilting thing might be a problem. I might have to figure out a way to Velcro the side or something. I don't know. All right, let's give it a cover for a second. Hopefully this goes into more of a grape factor. I can almost sense the grape tendency there, like a wine that's not quite opened up yet, but I'm hoping that's what I'm gonna get. Cause so far, man, I'm just not all in yet. Yeah, it's a little too funky for me, and I like sulfuric noses. I like a Benevis. I like a Glenturret. I like a Macallan Edition 2. I like sulfuric stuff, but this one's got some sour funkiness that I gotta. Guess we'll have to just sip it and see what happens. 46 neat first. Let's see what we get. Okay. Wow. Much better on the palate. Thank God. Wow. I'm gonna bring up some of their notes because I know they gave it like a great score, and I'm not gonna say that it doesn't deserve a great score, but I'm just so surprised by the difference between the nose and the palate. The palate is really damn good. I can see why I got a high mark, but I gotta see what these guys put for the nose notes. I just gotta see it, and I usually wouldn't like put it out there on a show, but these guys are really good about being very descriptive. You can follow along if you go to distiller.com and look up Daftmill 2006 one release and look up what I'm talking about. But wow. Okay. Now I'm not gonna look at them just yet because I want to get my palette notes out before I don't want to be influenced. Wow, that was really good on the palate. Pretty good finish too. Okay, let's. I gotta do this again. Hold on. All right. Even though it starts out with a thin mouth coat, it's definitely it might be a 12, but it's really thin on the mouth coat, reminiscent of the Glengoyne, but it's got the flavor of the Glengoyne. It's got really nice. It starts out with a slight like the orange slash like but more toffee, more butterscotch, more vanilla, more milk chocolate. Not fudgy, but yeah. It's funny. The nose is sour and herbal, but the taste is fruit slash savory sweet. It's It's very strange. I don't know how to explain it. And yeah, I mean, if you like a sauerkraut bread German dinner kind of a thing, this will be, I think, right up your alley. To me, I don't dislike it. It wasn't what I was expecting it by any means for the nose. Like the nose and the palate are completely, they're disjointed, but they're not. It's not the palate's like perfect. The nose just is really strange to me. Hopefully, maybe I should give it a bigger pour. I don't think I poured enough. I got to work tomorrow, so I got to be careful. It's 12 o'clock already. All right, we're gonna go for a little longer. Go out with a little bang, and wow, it's good. It's just different. It's amazing how better the palate is than the nose. That doesn't happen too often with me. Usually, if I have a bad nose, the palate's going to follow along just pretty much the same. This is completely different than that. Yeah, there's something just doesn't sit well with me for the nose sour wise, but the palate makes up for it, bar none. Hmm. Nice taste. I mean, when you're used to drinking cast drink, though, it's a very, very easy drink. I'd be really hard to. I mean, I'll add a drop to it, but this is one of those drains where I need an eye drop. It's so delicate and so thin, like a Glengoyne, that I'm afraid to touch it. But with this, I'm actually gotten really good where I can get a drop, like an eye drop piece out of it. It takes a lot of practice, but you get your water in there, then you let it all out until you get the last, literally last drop. Still, you're holding the last drop in the dropper, and that's the only way to really do it right. Where you can shake, you have to shake it literally to get a couple of drops out. I don't think it's going to mess with this whiskey very much, but you never know. That's why I give it a try. Well, usually a craft presentation has some unusual notes. That's a good point. The funny thing though is I got the same experience, almost not identical, but a similar experience that Avenderg knows. The palate was just as horrible though, so that was kind of a 1-star folly. It was horrible, but with this one, the nose was like a 1.5 stars. The palate though is like 4.5. I mean, it's up there. I still can't like the nose, no matter what I do to it. I can't fix that nose, but man, that palate was solid. I mean, it feels like a thin 12-year. If you like Glengoyne 12, though, I think you're going to fall in love with this bottle. It does have a slight sulfuric kind of a note, but thankfully on the nose it's more prevalent than it is in the palate. Yeah, but it's a different kind of a sulfuric funk. I'm not sure what it's from, but it's not cork taint or anything like that. If you're familiar with cork taint, look it up if you don't know what cork taint is. It's definitely not that, I don't think, because I have experienced that before. When John Glaser and the Scotch for Dummies were looking at a bottle of the Spaniard, the original, we had a cork tainted bottle, which is kind of funny, a story of its own. But no, it's not that. It's definitely some sort of sauerkraut nose thing, but very bready sourdough. But yet that palate, man. The finish could be better, and this is where I would love to try an older Daftmill that's got a better, maybe a better release, a better package, maybe. I'm down with the taste. Oh, it's even got some black pepper in there too. It ends with some really thick veggie notes, which I like. but the mouth coat's too thin, and the finish isn't as profound as it could be. I think the only way they could, I think it is a good 12. The 46 I really I appreciate. I'm surprised it's only ex-bourbon because there's a lot of funk going on with this, and I'd love to know how they're getting it, especially with the lowlands are really surprising me. Between Auchentoshan, Bladnoch, and now Daftmill, the lowlands are not what they seem. They're like all over the place. There's not really a. I mean, even with Campbelltown, you can kind of fit them into sort of like a box. With the lowlands, they're so different that I'm not sure if you could really classify them into one specific realm where they're all, I mean, they might be all triple distilled. I'm not sure if that's the case with Daftmill, but aside from triple distillation, I'm not quite sure what really holds them all together as a region other than them being environmentally in the same place, because the tastes are so different. A Bladnoch tastes nothing like this, and this tastes nothing like an Auchentoshan 3 wood, or even an Auchentoshan 12 American oak or whatever. They're nothing like each other. The Auchentoshans are more closer to what I would think a Speyside would be. The Bladnoch is closer to like an Abelauer, and this one is closer to like a Glen Scotia meets a Ben Nevis without the sulfur. It's really hard to explain, but I'm glad I took the journey on that one. That's a good taste. That is a good one. I wish the nose was more appealing. Take a look and see what, before we head out, let's take a look and see what they said, just to give you a different perspective on this bottle. And I'll add this to the notes on the feed afterwards, so people know they can check out a little bit about Daftmill on this particular video. He says the nose starts off as a big old pile of dry grass soaked in lemon lime citrus. Wow, how he pulled that out, I'm not sure. Maybe he's. I mean, maybe I just could not pull those things out. He gets green grapes and honey, malty, barley, sugar, cream of vanilla with bourbony oak, pickled ginger, dried berries and a touch of mint, green apples and underripe pears, pineapple, orange citrus, oranges and cream. Very tropical without being over the top fruity, slightly nutty, and almost almond flour biscuity. I mean, I did get the biscuity stuff that he got. I got the fruits to an extent, minorly. But wow, man, he got a lot more notes out of the nose than I ever could imagine. A light and delicate arrival on the palate. See, to me, the palate was like pow in your face, like intense. Very bright with lemon, lime, citrus. I did get lemon, but I'm not sure if I got the lime aspect of it. A somewhat sharp bourbony oak that is more oak than bourbon, which he said a bit floral, and I got the floral notes along with him. A very clean and pure spirit, like the nose. This turns tropical, but maybe even more so. Pineapple, ginger, coconut, orange, maybe a little papaya, some vanilla, and a little peppery. I got the pepper. I'm with him on that. I got some of the fruits, but wow, man, he got a lot more with the ginger and coconut than I was able to pull out on that deal. But I did appreciate the palate definitely a lot more than the nose. A light to medium bodied mouthfeel. To me, it was all light. He got a medium out of it, possibly. Creamy mouth coat and dry. I thought it was a bit dry, but that's okay. It wasn't overly dry. Finish is fairly short with oak, lime, and pineapple. I got the oak, but mine was more of a fudgy, thankfully, savory, fudgy, right amount of dark and milk chocolate kind of a finish. Didn't get the lime and pineapple that he got. He got like the tropical, citrusy notes out of it. I just didn't get, but everything else I was pretty much spot along with him, I think. He says, I have to say that first, I didn't think much of this whiskey. It came off a bit boring. No peat, no sherry, no fancy wine cask finish. What's the deal? Then I realized this is simply more a traditional way of producing Scotch. Quality first fill cask, aged to maturity level, and not an age statement. No frills or finishes to cover up any blemishes, other than wanting the finish to be a little stronger. There's nothing really wrong with this single malt. I'm sure 5 to 6 years they will have a fine 18-year-old in their hands, which I think he's right. I think the promise is definitely there compared to most 3 or 4 year offerings up to 12. I think they are doing well with their 12 years. So it was 132 for the bottle. He says that's a bit pricey for a 12-year-old though. Man, they're definitely going by I'd say more of the rareness than the value, because the nose could be better in my opinion, but that's where I'm knocking it on. Here's this Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee says that Daftmill is one of the fewer distilleries in Scotland. The thing about these guys that's pretty surprising though is they had enough capital funding so they didn't have to release underage whiskey or young whiskey to keep afloat. They were able to wait almost 12 years to release an official whiskey, which is great. That's the way to do it if you can do it. It's an official that was bottled this last year. He's thanking Paul. This malt is pale yellow, which is true, lightly oily, not much in leg formation, and tiny slow droplets. And he's on par, on task with that. Nose is apples and fresh popcorn. I could see a popcorn kind of feel to it. Raw shelled peanuts and thyme and lime wedges. You got lime in there. Maybe that was the off-putting sourness that I didn't like, as I'm not a lime fan, and that might be what it is. He says there's a nice minerality to it as well. Some floral and perfume notes crept in along with a nice soft hint of vanilla, allowing this one to sit rewards you quite well. And I think that's what I think time does do this one justice. Which time is one of those things you have to give as a whiskey taster. You have to be better with your time management and be willing to give more time. Sometimes I have literally given drams 45 minutes to open up. That is not an exaggeration, and sometimes it does take a dram, especially if it's NAS, 45 minutes to open up. And the perfect example of that is the Glendronach peated portwood. It takes 45 minutes for that sucker to open up. So this might be one of those that I might have to give more time to. It's got to be the lime that was throwing me off, I'm pretty sure. He said the palate was a big-time citrus to me, which I agree. It's overwhelming, clean-leaf-like waxiness, and very nice tropical fruit and pineapple slices. You got pineapple, too. I guess the lime really killed it for me, because he says this thing has lime flavor for days. And I think that was the part that was really not doing it for me. So if you're a lime fan, and I mean Ardbeg 10 kind of lime fan, this might be up your alley minus the peat. If you're looking for a really limey dram without the peat, the Daftmill I think is a good choice, because it does have a lot of lime in it. Because that must have been what I really did not like on the nose. Thankfully, I did not get an abundance on the palate, but it was enough of the other fruits to balance it out for me. The finish reminded me of a very well-made margarita. Fresh limes, salt linger on, and there's some nice agave fruit flavor that hangs around. Yeah, I think I got the agave that he's talking about. I couldn't put my finger on the flavor, but agave is a good explanation of it. Some fresh oak ushers everything out the door, and I did get a lot of oak. It was very woody dram, I think. He says kudos, fantastic spirit to Daftmill. He gave it 4 to 4.5 stars, and then my friend Praning gave it 5 stars, and he's as picky as I am. I did enjoy the palate and even the finish to an extent. The nose killed it for me, so I'm thinking I'm going to probably give it like a 4.25 to 4.5. But that's saying a lot, because I'm pretty picky when it comes to, well, most drams, I think 3 is a good average. If you're above average, 3.5. This is slightly above average, I'd say. It's that sweet B plus kind of area where it's B plus plus. It's almost an A, and I think just a few more years or a different cask, something they're going to find is going to bring that nose to a better position. The mouthfeel hopefully will get better. Maybe more ABV might help it out. I'm not quite sure, but I think that they're going to find it. He says I had just got to the point of firmly believing that all new distilleries quickly put out their gut puke first products at silly prices with huge fanfare and marketing bullshit, which Prene is awesome. He doesn't hold back. He's just like, bang, I'm going to give it to you like I think it is. And we have similar taste profiles, which I really appreciate. Take, for example, the likes of Avondurg, Eden Mill, and Glasgow. 3-year crap products at McKellen prices. These crap products that are flipped and doubled and tripled in the secondary market, no one tastes them. Now, I agree with him on the Avondurg, definitely. I never had Eden Mill's distillery stuff. I do like the Scotch Malt Society offerings, though. Glasgow, as a distiller, I haven't tried yet, but he's definitely already like saying that don't even go there. So he, like me, he was not down with the Avondurg as a new distillery. They just flipped them. Gone are the days that distilleries like Kilchoman, which were considered a new distillery decades ago, would put out a really good 3-year-old at affordable $70 prices until now. Daftmill is the newest lowlander, but it does things differently. First off, it's not a 3-year-old that's been placed out as a newbie. It's a 12-year-old in a local distillery. It grows and malts chariot barley in its own farms. It also doesn't do a round-the-clock distillation. Instead, it's a seasoned distillery like the way distilleries were 100 years ago. It distills only in between harvests. This makes the output pretty small, like a craft distillery. This distillery, for example, was distilled in the winter of 2006 and released in 2018. Out of all the lowlanders I've had, it really takes the crown. First whiff is fruit baskets galore. Think strawberry shortcake, oily and the thick mouthfeels, more strawberries and peaches. Wow, Prane. We must have been on the nose. We must have been sniffing different stuff, because I swear to God, man, I did not get a fruit on the nose at all. Oh man, I hope my nose isn't like shot. I mean, I did really well on the Glenlivet, so I think I'm all there. I think that the lime / sourdough feel of it just really rocked me. Love the palate though. Just really well made. Instead of rushing things, though, they took their time and did great things. Only 1,600 bottles are generally released each season. Priced affordably, about $100 or so. Retailer is probably the best $100 malt you'll have. Got mine for $125, but minutes later was all sold out. 1,600 bottles aren't much and will go quickly. Don't pay secondary markets over $700, and anything 200 is all perspective. 125 is what he could find it for. So, moral of the story is, for these new distilleries, even if they're 12-year, I think 150 at the most is what I would probably think it's worth. I would not shell out $700 at all for a whiskey like this. That savory note is just so freaking weird to me, and it's gonna sit with me for a while. It's gonna remind me of a Ben Nevis on one hand, and it's also gonna remind me of like a really fruity, savory Glen Scotia minus the peat on the other end, palate wise. It's really weird, but I like it. Is it worth $100? Man, I think it's maybe worth 100, but I'm thinking once you get much above the 100 scale, I don't think that a experienced whiskey connoisseur is going to be kind of like thinking that once they get above the 125 realm for the 12-year-old, even if it's rare, I think they're going to be kind of like killing themselves for paying crazy money for it. But if you can get it for 1 to 125, I think you'd be into it. Obviously, these guys love it. Pranay gave it a 5. Lee gave it a 4.25, and Paul gave it a 4. Now, with my review, Paul says 3.75 to 4. He was a little less. And the funny thing is, Paul is usually the most generous with his ratings. He's on the higher end usually, and surprisingly, Lee was slightly above him, and Pranay was way above. And usually, Pranay and I are the ones that are a little more, stringent. I think maybe on the review, a little less forgiving. But Paul has a really good way. I think he has the best nose / palate maybe out of the 5 of us, because he can really pull out some crazy notes. And I think I've got a decent nose, but I think he's got a super nose, super palate. I think he's at that level. I think he's slightly has been around the block a little longer, maybe, or just has that knack, that natural ability to pick out maybe even more. Maybe it can be learned. I hope it can. I'm gonna try it. Nope, $700 way too much for you can pick up a 25-year-old plus. That's true. Hey, Whiskey Ace, good to see you. Talking about a Daftmill here. Yeah, I think I'm gonna sit between Paul. I might not go as low as Paul in the 3.5. 3.75 to 4. I'm not going to go as high as Pranay with the 5, but I think Lee is pretty fair in the middle at a 4.25. The only reason being that I wouldn't go higher than that is the nose just didn't do it for me. I'm gonna have one more pour, just one more slight little pour. I've got a lot left actually. I've been kind of sipping lightly on it here and there. I just want a little bit of an extra taste to see, and nose to see if I'm losing my mind or if I'm right on the money. Yeah, that funkiness is just a little too sour / savory for me on the nose. I don't think I'll ever be like thinking to myself, man, I gotta nose that Daftmill winter release. I hate to say it, but it's just not for me. But the palate and the finish, though, palate especially, finish being the second best, palate being the first best, nose being the last. I think that's the deal. Elijah Craig, yeah. Barrel proof. It's the palate is so different and so complex comparatively. That's the funniest thing about it. It's like the nose of a 3 to 5-year-old whiskey, but the palate of an 18-year-old whiskey. Just really weird. It's a really nice, really nice fudgy milk / dark chocolate flavoring toward the end, but yeah, the mouth coat's going to kill it for me too. If it was a better mouth coat, I'd give it a 4.5, 4.75. If it was a better nose, I'd also would probably give it a 4.5 to 4.75. So whole nose and drink trim is not a convenient way to drink. That's true. Yeah. I wish it was readily available, because I'd love to know what you guys think about this one. So down the road, do me a favor, if you ever are able to pick up a Daftmill 2006 winter release, let me know if your nose was similar to Pranay / Paul / Lee's, or if it was more closer to mine. I'm really curious on what you guys think. So hopefully you have a chance to either get a sample of salsa or a bottle or a way to try it out. And let me know in the comments later after the chat, in the comments, of what you thought of it. I'm really interested, because it's hard to know if I'm losing my mind, if I'm just having a bad nose, after. But I had a great time nosing the hell out of the SMWS 2.111, the Glenlivet 11. So I don't know. You know how it is. Well, we got to shut this up, guys, because I've got to telework tomorrow and get a lot of stuff done. Absolutely. I really appreciate you guys sticking around. Give me a thumbs up if you had a good time before you go. I really appreciate it. And if you give me a thumbs down, that's okay too. It all counts. At least I know who's enjoying themselves and who's not. Someone has made it obvious that they don't like what I'm doing. I'm not quite sure why, and do the thumbs down on pretty much every video they can all of a sudden, but that's okay. It still all counts for viewership. So I welcome whatever I can get. Thanks, Whiskey Ace. Cheers to you guys. Slanchava, and looking forward to the arrival of the Glen Scotia and the Dalmore that'll be coming soon. See ya.